much for waiting. Past two.
Okay, Mataji. Okay, Mataji. Hare Krishna. I welcome all the devotees to our Bhakti Sangha Japa conference call of our Caitanya Caritamrita class. And Hare Krishna. Mataji, have you started recording?
Yes.
Okay, Mataji. Hare Krishna. I welcome all the devotees to our Bhakti Sangha Japa conference call of our Caitanya Caritamrita class. And today we are very fortunate to have with us Her Grace Preethi Vilasini Mataji to enlighten on the topic of Caitanya Caritamrita Antya Lila 8.57 onwards. Hare Krishna Preethi Mataji, please accept my Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining this session and giving your very valuable association and time this morning and enlightening on the topic, Mataji. I hand over the call to you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Supriya Mataji. And thanks to all the devotees for joining. And please forgive me for all the delays. You're able to see the screen share and you're seeing database, right?
Yes, Mataji. We are seeing text 54, 55, 56.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. We'll start with the prayers. Jaya Jaya Shri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Krupa Tamaham Vande Shri Guram Deenatarinam Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Radhanath Swami Nitinamine Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nitinamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschayate Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we're reading from Sri Caitanya Caritamrita. This is Antya Lila chapter 8 and text 56 onwards we will start seeing. So before that, I'll just give a brief summary of what has happened in this chapter. And hopefully we'll finish this chapter today. So this would be the last time you're hearing the story again and again. But since it is the final class for this chapter, we will just quickly do the story once more. Okay, so this chapter is titled How Ramachandra Puri was criticizing Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And the background story is that once Ramachandra Puri, he came to see Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Paramananda Puri in Jagannath Puri Kshetra. And this Ramachandra Puri was a disciple of Ishvara Puri. It so happened that Ramachandra Puri was influenced by the Mayavad philosophy and he couldn't understand the ecstatic symptoms that his spiritual master Ishvara Puri was showing, and he criticized his spiritual master and he was giving advice to his own spiritual master as to how to meditate on the Brahman instead of worrying about calling out for Krishna's names. So this is the offense that he did, and then eventually it is mentioned that he started developing vasanas. So vasanas means material desires, and one aspect of that is that he developed the habit of unnecessarily pointing out faults and criticizing others, and it had become a rampant disease in him, where he would somehow or the other try his best to find faults with nice advanced devotees and then put them down. So this is what happened, accusing people unnecessarily, and this developed to a point where he even found faults with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And the fault that he found with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is that he accused Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and all his followers of actually eating unnecessarily, eating more than required. And when before he could find fault with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, actually Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami tells us that he was he was trying hard to somehow or the other find a fault with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And one day he managed to see some ants crawling. And then he said, last night there was a sugar candy here, therefore ants are wandering about. Alas, this renowned sannyasi is attached to sense gratification. So, this is the statement that this Ramachandra Puri made. But however, Krishnavas Kaviraj Goswami clarifies that it is normal for ants to be crawling here and there in those, in those and in that in particular environment. But then he was imagining faults and he criticized Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So if a critic wants to find fault, he can find it some way or the other. And here we see Ramananda Puri, Ramachandra Puri. What he did was he imagined faults and he criticized Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, alleging Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that he had been having sweetmeats all the time in this room. So after hearing this criticism, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he became very apprehensive, and therefore he called Govinda, who is his personal servant, and he told Govinda that from today it will be a rule that I will accept only 1/4 of the pot of Jagannath Prasadam and a ganda's worth of vegetables. That means just a little bit of vegetables and a little bit of Jagannath Mahaprasad. So he said, I'm going to reduce my eating, and this is all I would be eating. And he told Govinda, if you bring more than this, then I will leave the place. I'm not going to stay here anymore. So when Govinda went and told this to all the devotees, and all the devotees became extremely upset when they heard this. So once the devotees heard this, this is verse number 56, where it says, Ramachandra Puri ke sabhaya dekat tirakshara, ye papishta asi prana la ila sabar. All the devotees condemned Ramachandra Puri, saying, this sinful man has come here and he has simply taken away our lives. So that is what happened as far as the story is concerned so far. And now continuing from verses 57 through 58. Okay. So let's see what happens here. We'll just read this verse. This is Sri Caitanya Caritamtra Antya Lila, chapter 8, verses 57 to 58. एक दिन एक विप्र कैल निमंत्रण एक चौथी भाटा पंच भंडार व्यंजन ए मात्र गोविंद कैल अंगीकार माथा यागा मारे विप्र करे हाहाकार. So it says that day a Brahmana extended an invitation to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When Govinda accepted only 5 gandas worth of vegetables and 1/4 of a pot of rice, the Brahmana, in great despair, struck his head with his hand and cried, Alas, alas. Antya Lila 8.59. Sei bata vyanjana prabhu ardhika khaila ye kichu rahila tata govinda paila. Translation: Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ate only half of the rice and vegetables, and whatever remained was taken by Govinda. 8.60. Ardhashana karena prabhu govinda ardhashana sabha bhakta ganatabe chadiya bhojana. Translation: both Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Govinda ate only half of the food they needed. Because of this, all the other devotees gave up eating. So what we'll do is we'll stop here, we'll have some discussion, and then we'll keep screening the future verses till we end the chapter. So I'm going to put my point at verse number 60 onwards for now, and then let's continue our discussion. So let's see what happened. So as we saw in these verses, that one day a Brahmana came and he extended an invitation to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and when Govinda accepted just very little of the rice and very little of the vegetables, the Brahmana who was giving this ingredients to Govinda, he was feeling very, very bad, and he was striking his head and he was crying. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he had drastically reduced his eating. He made it really, really less. And whatever was given to him, he ate only half of what was given to him. First of all, he had reduced the quantity of purchase. So he had reduced the quantity of the food that he was accepting. And in that, he ate only half. And the remaining half, he gave it to Govinda, so that Govinda, who's his personal servant, could actually accept whatever was remaining from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And because both Govinda and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had reduced their eating so drastically, all the devotees became extremely upset, and they also started reducing their eating, because they felt if the Lord is not eating, if the Lord's own personal servant is not eating, then it is not worth that they accept so much prasadam. So, but then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very, very compassionate towards Govinda and Kashishwara, who were his constant companions, that he told them, if at all you want to accept something else for eating, you can go, you can bake somewhere and you can fill up your bellies. But this is all I will be accepting, and this is the half of what I'll be accepting, I will be giving you. So then this news spread far and wide. A lot of people started to know that actually Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had reduced his food and Govinda was hardly eating anything. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave instructions to Kashishwar and Govinda that if they wanted something else, they could just go outside and fill up their bellies. And when this news spread far, even Ramachandra Puri got to know that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had actually reduced his eating. So once he got to know this, he wanted to further go and talk to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Ramachandra Puri again he went to see Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he went to the place where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was residing. So when he went there, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the minute he saw Ramachandra Puri coming in, he immediately offered his obeisances, because Ramachandra Puri was a senior. So he offered his obeisances and he worshipped his lotus feet. And then Ramachandra Puri, very smilingly, he told the Lord that actually, I heard from everyone that you have reduced your eating. And it appears like the way Ramachandra Puri comes and talks to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, a person who's very fond of finding faults and criticizing, he also likes to justify his stand. So it's a common psychology that when one has this habit of finding a fault or pointing fingers at others, they like to justify their actions by saying that I'm doing it for your own good. It is only for your good that I'm trying to tell you this, because that gives them a satisfaction that they're not bad people. Right. So that's what Ramachandra Puri, he just came and he said, actually, like as if he just wanted the well being and the good name for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He told that I advised you to cut down half the food because it is not the business of a sannyasi to gratify his senses. And a sannyasi should just accept whatever comes his way and he should fill in his belly in some way or the other. So that's the reason I actually came and I gave you this advice. I mean, he was more projecting it like as if it was for the good of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as a sannyasi to help him follow his sannyas dharma. And then he just couldn't stop there. He went on further saying that actually you have cut your eating into half and you've become very skinny. But dry renunciation is also not very good. That is also not a religion of a sannyasi. So therefore, you should not eat too less also. So this was an added advice there. And this is what Ramachandra Puri told Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Of course, this is based on the verse of the Bhagavad Gita, and this is a very famous verse that this is verse number 60. Actually, in Caitanya Caritamrita, in this chapter, it is 67 to 68, and it is a Bhagavad Gita verse that is quoted to actually talk about what Krishna has also spoken about the similar point. So I can open up 67 and 68 and we can read that verse. It's a direct Bhagavad Gita verse about how one should have controlled eating. One should not eat too much or too less. Actually, but remember, at this point, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was actually eating properly. There was no dharma that he was going against, but this was the opinion of Ramachandra Puri. So anyway, let's go through the Bhagavad Gita verse. And that says, Lord Sri Krishna said, my dear Arjuna, one cannot perform mystic yoga if he eats more than necessary or needlessly fasts, sleeps, and dreams too much, nor or does or not sleep enough. One should eat and enjoy his senses as much as necessary. One should properly endeavor to execute his duties and one should regulate his sleep and wakefulness. Thus, one can become freed from material pains by executing mystic yoga. So basically, the idea put forth here in chapter, you see, this is Bhagavad Gita chapter 6, that is Dhyana Yoga. In that particular chapter, it talks about meditation, mystic yoga, and so on. And Krishna tells that for a yogi who's into mystic meditation, mystic yoga, It is important that he controls his senses and regulates his eating. He should not be eating too much, or he should not be eating too less. He should not be sleeping too much, or he should not be sleeping too less. Everything should be regulated, and in such a state of body mind, he'll be able to perform mystic yoga. However, if you look at this particular verse, which I'll project right here from the Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada very clearly mentions in the purport that devotees, generally, for them, regulated eating means accepting prasadam. So that's what exactly Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was doing. He was just accepting Jagannath Prasadam. So even for us, the instruction is that if we want to have regulated eating, the suggestion given to us is that we accept Prasadam and we don't accept unnecessary food that is not offered to Krishna. And one doesn't eat food for the sake of sense pleasure. Rather, one honors Prasadam as the mercy of the Lord. So that is the consciousness in which a devotee eats. So whatever food that he's accepting, he must have this consciousness that this is the causeless mercy of Krishna, and that itself, that consciousness itself, as we are accepting that prasadam, makes it regulated eating. So Prabhupada talks about it in this verse as well as the next verse of the Bhagavad Gita. In the purport, he talks. Look at this: extravagance in the matter of eating, sleeping, defending, and mating, which are demands of the body, can block advancement in the practice of yoga. As far as eating is concerned, it can be regulated only when one is practiced to take and accept prasadam, that is sanctified food. Lord Krishna has offered, according to the Bhagavad Gita, vegetables, flowers, fruit, grains, milk, and so on. And in this way, a person in Krishna consciousness becomes automatically trained not to accept food that is not meant for human consumption or in the category of goodness. So this is the suggestion that is given regarding eating. So, but however, here we have this Ramachandra Puri who's coming in, and he says that, don't eat too much or don't eat too less. And he was giving all this advice to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, where actually already Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was following everything. But anyway, when a superior like Ramachandra Puri came and gave him this advice, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he exhibited tolerance and humility in the right way to show people how a sannyasi should conduct himself and how an advanced devotee should behave. So very nicely, he humbly submitted himself in front of Ramachandra Puri, and he told Ramachandra Puri that actually I'm a very ignorant boy, I'm a young boy, I'm like your disciple, and it's my great fortune that you're instructing me. Now remember, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was telling this to Ramachandra Puri, he was not telling it sarcastically. So sometimes if someone gives us an advice, I mean, at least definitely many, it happens that we have this habit of outwardly accepting the advice, but then making a sarcastic remark like, yeah, you're great. And I will accept whatever you say. But here, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was not making that remark sarcastically. He was really accepting what Ramachandra Puri was saying, thinking that whatever a superior is telling us, maybe it is for our own good. So I'm accepting it for my good, and I'm very fortunate to have a person who's giving me instructions, who's able to keep me in the right path, so that these useful inputs can be put in a way that I can improve myself. So he was considering Ramachandra Puri's criticism also as a way to improve himself and show by example to the world. So this was the mood in which Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted that advice. And then Ramachandra Puri, after talking like this to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he got up and he left. And he also inquired from other people, and everyone else was telling that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had really reduced his eating to half, and this is how he was maintaining himself. So Ramchandra Puri was very happy. Everything is done. He was very happy. However, the associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they were very, very unhappy. They were extremely unhappy. And Paramananda Puri, the next day, he went to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and with great humility and submission, he began to talk to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So what did he talk to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? So let's go to verse number 72, and we can see what Paramananda Puri started telling Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Okay, so here we go. Caitanya Caritamtra Antya Lila, chapter 8, verse number 72. रामचंद्र पुरी हया निंदुक स्वभावा तारा बोले अन्न चढ़ी की बलावा. Translation. Paramananda Puri said, "My god brother Ramachandra Puri is by nature a bad critic. If you give up eating because of his words, what will be the profit?" 73. Puri rasvabhava yatishta ahara karana yena kaya tare ka kao ya yatana kariya. Translation. It is the nature of Ramachandra Puri that first he lets one eat as much as desired, and if one does not eat more than necessary, with great attention, he makes them eat more. 74. Khao yana puna tare karaya nindana yeta anna khavo tomar kata chedhana. In this way, he induces one to eat more than necessary. And when he directly criticizes them, saying, "You eat so much, how much money do you have in your treasury?" So it appears that this was the mood of Ramachandra Puri, and of course, this was also clarified earlier. So this is verse number 75. Sanyasi ke eta kavo yana kara dharmanash atayeva jaino tomar kichu nahi bhas. Also, by indicating sannyasis do not eat much, you spoil their religious principles. Therefore, I can understand that you have no advancement. के कैचे व्यवहारे के बा कैचे काया ये अनुसंधान तिन्हो करय sadhaya. It is Ramachandra Puri's business to inquire always about how others are eating and conducting their daily affairs. So here is the description of the mood of of Ramachandra Puri. So Paramananda Puri, he goes and he tells Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that, "My god brother, you know about him, and it is his nature that he's a bad critic. And what he does is he actually induces others to eat more and more. He goes and tells, eat more, eat more. He makes people who are already following everything nicely to eat more, and then he takes that opportunity and he starts criticizing them. So in this way, he has this bad habit of unnecessarily, criticizing people, uh, unnecessarily criticizing people. And he also does another thing, is that he tells that it appears that you have so much food to eat. So do you have a lot of money in your treasury? Being a sannyasi, you're accumulating money. So like this also, this Ramachandra Puri begins to ask people. So his nature, as Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami explains here, as Paramananda Puri is telling to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that his nature is to actually always inquire about others, always worry about others, always, like we say in India in a slang, that they always like to poke into other people's business. So that is what Ramachandra Puri's business was. He always loved inquiring about others and how they are conducting themselves, what kind of daily affairs they are doing. That was his only business. So worrying too much about others' lifestyle, what others are doing, that is the tendency that Ramachandra Puri had cultivated. But however, it is very instructive to everyone that, we don't behave like Ramachandra Puri. Don't worry too much about others. Just conduct our own lives properly, and then we can worry about others. And that's why, it's said that we should learn to live and let live. So the first thing we want to do is destroy others living. So it's very important for us to start living our life and also let others live their lives the way they want. I mean, who are we to continuously go and try to direct other people's life? So that is what Ramachandra Puri was doing. And then there's a very, very beautiful verse. This is verse number 78. And what it says is that two kinds of activities are actually rejected in the revealed scriptures. And these two activities was the daily affair of Ramachandra Puri. So what are these two activities that is rejected in scripture? So this is actually the crux of what he was doing and what we need to avoid. So what, yeah. So what are the two activities that he was doing? And that is explained in verse number 78. See, it says, परस्व परस्वभावकर्माणि न प्रशंसेन गर्हयेत् विश्वम् एकात्मं पश्यन् prakritya purushena cha. One should see that because of the meeting of material nature and the living entity, the universe is acting uniformly. Thus, one should neither praise nor criticize the characteristics or activities of others. So, here is an instruction, and this verse is directly from the Srimad Bhagavatam, and it is an advice that was given by Krishna to Uddhava. Of course, Krishna was not telling this to Uddhava, quote unquote. It means that in Uddhava Gita, he was just trying to tell Uddhava so that everyone else can follow this principle. So, what did he say? This is 11:28:1. The verse is directly quoted from the Bhagavatam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, one should neither praise nor criticize the conditioned nature and activities of other persons. Rather, one should see this world as simply the combination of material nature and enjoying souls, all based on one absolute truth. Actually, this verse, that is 11:28:1 and 11:28:2, are very, very important in this matter. So I really want to read the purport, and I'll try to read it as expressive as possible so that we can understand what is being told here. And then we understand what is praise, what is criticism, and which is more important, which of these two regulative principles is more important to follow, and how Ramachandra Puri was breaking everything. So first, let's look at the purport of 11:28:1. It says, material situations and activities appear to be good, passionate, or ignorant according to the interaction of the modes of material nature. So, if anyone is performing any activity, whether they are performing it in the mode of goodness or passion or ignorance, it is all because of the interaction of the modes of material nature. And these modes are produced by the illusory potency of the Lord, which itself is non different from its master, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, a devotee of the Lord remains aloof from the illusory temporary manifestations of material nature. So, a devotee of the Lord is not really concerned about how a person is conducting himself, in whether a person is conducting himself in a mode of goodness or passion or ignorance, meaning it is none of our business. Okay, it is all because of the interaction of the modes of material nature that a person is behaving in a certain way. At the same time, he accepts material nature as the potency of the Lord and thus essentially real. The example may be given of that of a modeling clay that is shaped by a child into various playful forms such as tigers, men, or houses. Now, hear carefully. The modeling clay is real, okay? Whereas the temporary shapes it assumes are illusory, not being actual tigers, men, or houses. Similarly, the entire cosmic manifestation is a modeling clay in the hands of the Supreme Lord, who acts through Maya to shape the glaring temporary forms of illusion, which absorbs the mind of those who are not devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, this itself doesn't clarify much, but the very next verse clarifies this point of criticizing and glorifying. So what we saw in the previous purport is that everything, this world, is the external energy of the Lord. The external energy of the Lord should not be taken too seriously. That is the first point. Second thing is that you should not think that it doesn't exist either, meaning you should understand that it is the potency of the Lord, so it really exists. Okay, see, and the example given is, for example, you have modeling clay. Okay, the clay exists, the clay itself is there, the external world, this external manifestation of the Lord, this external energy, it exists, but don't take it too seriously. Why? Because with that clay which really exists, when you make models of tigers, lions, or whatever, is it really a tiger? Is it really a lion? No, that manifestation is actually um, not to be taken seriously, because it's really not a lion or really not a tiger, but however the clay is real. So, like that, we should see this world and the interactions of the different people of this world. Remember, we are also a part of Krishna's energy. This external manifestation is also a part of Krishna's energy. So, this is the first concept that is being presented in verse 1. Now, because of this, what is the concept that is presented in the next verse in 11:28:2? It says, परस्वभाव कर्माणि य प्रशंसति निन्दति स आशु bharshayate swarthad asati abhiniveshitaha. Translation: whoever indulges in praising or criticizing the qualities and behavior of others will quickly become deviated from his own best interest by his entanglement in illusory dualities. So, if you take this too seriously, then you get entangled in illusory dualities. You're seeing dualities, you're getting entangled in illusion. So don't take these things too seriously. See, purport: a conditioned soul desires to lord it over material nature and thus criticizes another conditioned soul whom he considers inferior. Similarly, one praises a superior materialist because one aspires to that superior position in which one may dominate others. Praising and criticizing other materialistic people are thus directly or indirectly based on envy of other living entities, and the cause and it is the cause for one to fall down from swa-artha, or one's real self-interest in Krishna consciousness. So this is the reason that statement we saw in Antya Lila, that one should neither praise nor criticize someone. Now, I'll read the purport further because it's very instructive, and this is an opportunity for us to read this purport. So, the words asati abhiniviveshitaha, by absorption in the temporary or unreal, indicate that one should not adopt a concept of material duality and praise or criticize other materialistic persons. Rather, one should praise. What should one do? One should praise the pure devotees of the Supreme Lord and criticize the mentality of rebellion against the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by which one becomes a non devotee. One should not criticize a low class materialist thinking that a high class materialist is nice. In other words, one should distinguish between the material and spiritual, and one should not become absorbed in good and bad on the material platform. So, when we talk about criticism and praise, it should never be done on a material platform. For example, an honest citizen distinguishes between the life of civil freedom and that of imprisonment, whereas a foolish prisoner distinguishes between a comfortable and uncomfortable prison cell. Just as for a free citizen, any situation in prison is unacceptable, for a liberated Krishna conscious devotee, any material position is actually unappealing. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur indicates that rather than trying to separate conditioned souls by materialistic distinctions, one should bring them together to chant the holy names of the Lord and propagate the Sankirtan movement of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. A non devotee or even an envious third class devotee is not interested in uniting people on the platform of love of Godhead. Instead, he unnecessarily separates them by emphasizing material distinctions like communist, capitalist, black, white, rich, poor, liberal, conservative, and so on. Material life is always imperfect, full of ignorance, and disappointing in the end. Rather than praising and criticizing high and low features of ignorance, one should be absorbed in Krishna consciousness on the path of on the spiritual platform of eternity, bliss, and knowledge. So the idea here is that you see, two things are being regarded as unnecessary. One is criticizing, and the other is praising. Of the two rules, Ramachandra Puri, what was he doing? He was obeying the first, that is, he was abandoning praise. He was unnecessarily not praising anyone. So he was of the two rules, he was obeying the first one, which is abandoning praise. But although he knows that the second one is more prominent, he neglected it by criticizing others. So this is what Ramachandra Puri was doing. So there are, again, in the purport, what exactly this sentence means, and what is praise, what is criticize. See, generally, when you see the statement as a whole, it appears that one should neither praise nor criticize. But then we see all the time devotees praise, right? So is that right or is that wrong? Is praise good or bad? We see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself praising many of his devotees. And in every other chapter of Caitanya Caritamrita, we'll see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu praising Rupa Goswami or Sanatan Goswami, praising their genuine qualities, genuine devotional qualities. So I think the answer is already given to us in the purpose that we read from Bhagavatam, that if it is on a materialistic platform just for our own benefit, one should not praise. Okay, like how that purport very clearly, the first paragraph of that particular purport that we read here in 82, if you see this first paragraph, it says that just because we want to lord our material nature, sometimes we praise someone in a superior position because I am aspiring for that superior position. So it's all about consciousness. But however, what sort of praise should be done? Praise should be done in context to devotional service, in context to the Supreme Lord. If the devotee is doing something in service to the Supreme Lord, definitely praise must be offered. And we see this example over and over where devotees praise each other because they are truly recognizing the potential of that devotee. They are truly recognizing the good qualities of that person who is performing devotional service. They are not doing it out of sarcasm, or they are not doing it out of personal benefit. They just do it because they truly appreciate devotees. So here we see it so nicely explained in Chaitanya Charitamrita that which is more important. Which of these two? We saw two rules, right? One should not praise, one should not criticize. Among the two, which is more important? Avoiding criticism is more important. So that is explained in verse number 79. It says, of the two rules, Ramachandra Puri obeys the first by abandoning praise, but although he knows that the second is more prominent, he neglects it by criticizing others. So he has chosen, he has chosen something that it's convenient for him. So what has he done? I won't praise anyone, but I will make sure that I go around criticizing everyone. And actually, there's a secret in this verse. What is the secret? That is described in the purport. When a statement like this is given, you see this statement, it talks about two opposing things. One is praising and the other is criticizing, and they are saying you should abandon both. So, such a statement, it is described that it has two vidhis. The first is called as Purva Vidhi, that one should not praise, and the second is called as Paravidhi, that one should not criticize. It will be apparent from the following verse, the injunction against praise is less important than the injunction against blasphemy. So when an injunction is given in one sentence, opposing injunctions like this, two opposite things, we should always remember that this sentence has Purva Vidhi and Paravidhi. When such a sentence is given, it is called as the Shleshokti. Such a statement is called as a Shleshokti, and it has two meanings. And at that time, we should understand that one should carefully observe the Paravidhi, the second statement, although one can neglect the Purva Vidhi, the first statement. So what is the first statement? To avoid praise. One can praise. Okay, when such a statement is given with opposing things, it's called as Shleshokti. Such a statement in Shastra, Nyaya Shastra is called as a Shleshokti. And when such a statement is given, the latter half becomes more important to follow than the first half. The first half takes a back seat, and one should observe the latter half, the latter rule, with more caution. That should be observed. And the second one is actually not something that is important. So that is the rule of a Shleshokti statement that has two meanings. And Ramachandra Puri, what he did, he acted in just the opposite way. He gave importance to the Purva Vidhi. He gave importance to criticizing others, and he neglected the Paravidhi, which is actually one should, meaning he stopped praising others. So like this, he broke all the rules. So this is what Ramachandra Puri was actually doing. And here we say between the former rule and the latter is more important. And this is a verse from the Nyaya literatures. So the Nyaya Shastras, according to Sanskrit rules and regulations, the Nyaya Shastras tells that when there is a statement that is in the format of Shleshokti, one should remember that among the Purva Vidhi and the Paravidhi, one should carefully observe the Paravidhi and one can neglect the Purva Vidhi. This is a rule. But what was Ramachandra Puri doing? He was doing the reverse. He was criticizing and he neglected praise. Actually, when a Shleshokti like this statement is given, one should do the other way around. He should carefully observe the Paravidhi and he neglects the Purvavidhi. This is what has to be done, but he was doing the reverse. So therefore, he was breaking everything. This is what Ramachandra Puri was doing, and this is what Paramananda Puri is telling Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. First and foremost thing, it is his habit, and he does it purposely. And then he doesn't even follow the rules of scriptures. If Nyaya Shastra is given something like this, he does exactly the opposite. So this is his nature. Even when there are hundreds of good qualities in a person, this Ramachandra Puri will not see those hundreds of good qualities, and he will rather go and find somehow or the other. He'll try to pinpoint a particular criticism, some problem, and he will criticize that person. Rather, he attempts by some trick to point out a fault in those attributes. So it is very interesting. When we are oftentimes as devotees, we are trained to, we are always told this in all the classes and by our Guru Vargas and by the senior devotees, that you overlook the faults of others and you see good in everyone. Right? That is what, because the faults, they are there. Everybody has faults. And sometimes the faults are very irritating and you tend to, put a lens and focus on that fault and see that fault. That is human nature. We can't help it. But we are often told that we should train our minds to see 100 good qualities in others. So nobody is 100% bad. Nobody is 100% full of faults. They have so many good qualities. So if we shift that lens focus towards good qualities, then we also feel good at heart. We also feel grateful. We also feel nice. The more we keep focusing on the negativity builds in our heart. Actually, the problem is that by finding faults, ultimately what happens is we fill in our hearts with negativity. That is what is happening. That is the true thing that happens. The more and more and more we put the lens there and keep seeing, we are filling our hearts with it. So, but however, a negative person, a critic, what he will do is, even if there are thousands of good qualities, he will not appreciate those good qualities. He'll put a lens and he'll somehow try to find that fault. Like in the last session, we were discussing about the honeybee and the fly. The honeybee, even in a garbage, he will go to the most fragrant flower and he will suckle honey from there. But a fly, even in a garden, if there is a small piece of garbage, he'll go to that garbage and he'll keep sucking the juice out of that garbage. So this is the honeybee and the fly psychology. So one should learn to be like the honeybee and try to see good so that we can fill in our hearts also with goodness. So this is how Paramananda Puri was describing the analysis of the criticism of Ramachandra Puri. After he told all this to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, what happened after he said all this, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he said, actually, after he heard all this, he said, okay, you seem to be very upset with Ramachandra Puri. Actually, Paramananda Puri, he also said one more thing before he concluded his talk. He also said that I don't want to really come and talk negative about Ramachandra Puri. It's none of my business, I'm telling so much about him. But, it is important for me at this point in time to say something because everybody is unhappy. It's not that only I am unhappy and I'm coming and telling you this. Everybody, all the devotees are unhappy, and that is why I'm putting forward this to you. And my kind request to you, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, is that don't take him so seriously and don't stop eating. Don't reduce your eating. And because of this, so many people have started reducing their eating. So it is not worth it. And that is what Paramananda Puri came to tell Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because one can say, okay, even Paramananda Puri is finding faults with Ramachandra Puri by pointing out so many things about him. But here there was a necessity. There was a necessity that this is what it is. He was just stating facts and he had to tell it at this point in time. So that is the reason Paramananda Puri comes and tells Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that I have to say something at this point, and that's the only reason that I'm coming and telling you, because so many people are not happy about this. And somehow or the other, he tells Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, please start accepting invitations. Please, let's all get back to normal. And this is the request of then, once he said that, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu started answering Paramananda Puri. What did Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu tell Paramananda Puri? He said, why are you all angry with Ramachandra Puri? He is expounding the natural principles of sannyas life. Why are you accusing him? He's just telling what is good for sannyasi life. And for a sannyasi to indulge in satisfying the tongue is a great offense. It is the duty of a sannyasi to eat only as much as needed to keep the body and soul together. So that is all Ramachandra Puri is doing. So why are you all getting angry with Ramachandra Puri? Just like we all know, there is this nectar of instruction, first verse. Vacho vegam manasakroda vegam jihva vegam udaro pasta vegam etan veganyo vishahet adiraha sarvam apinam prithivim sa shishyat. So, if a sannyasi, if a great spiritual master is not able to control his tongue, then what is the use? So, a person, only such a person can make disciples all over the world. One who's controlled his tongue and belly. He's coming and telling me good things. He's telling me how to hold on to my sannyas life nicely. So, I take it positively. So, don't unnecessarily say anything. It's okay. And that is what. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually replied to Paramananda Puri, and this was the nature of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Though the criticism, though this criticism of Ramachandra Puri was highly unwanted, it was unnecessary, still Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted very gracefully, and he did not consider the offenses of Ramachandra Puri. Actually, it is seen that the Lord, he doesn't take offenses to himself very seriously. Rather, he takes offenses to his devotees very seriously. And this is seen throughout the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Throughout Chaitanya Charitamrita, Lord Chaitanya, he gets very upset very easily. Even Krishna is also like that. I mean, the Lord is like that. Lord Ram, Lord Krishna, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they are all like that. When his devotee is offended, he takes it very seriously. When he is told something, he takes it very positively. Okay, it's for my correction. I'll do it so that I can show the world. So that was the mood of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, although the devotees didn't like it. So when the Lord is offended, the devotees get upset. When the devotees are offended, the Lord gets upset. So this is the psychology between the Lord and his devotees. So there is a very nice story of Devananda Pandit that was discussed recently, even in the Damodar Kids class. The story of Devananda Pandit and how Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu reacted in his case. How Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu takes offenses to his devotees seriously, but he doesn't take offense to himself so seriously. Um, so this Devananda Pandit, he was a great Pandit. He was a great scholar of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and he used to live in Kuliagram. And he was a famous reciter of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And he was also very similar to Ramachandra Puri, meaning he had understood the Bhagavatam in the Mayavad way. He had a lot of Mayavad elements in his understanding, and he was influenced by the Mayavad philosophy, just like Ramachandra Puri. So that's the big fault that even Devananda Pandit had initially, and it so happened that he would give Bhagavatam classes, and a lot of people would go and attend his Bhagavatam classes. So it would be a house full of students and followers whenever Devananda Pandit spoke from the Srimad Bhagavatam. One afternoon, Srivas Pandit, who was a very advanced devotee, one day he happened to go by Devanand Pandit's house, and he sat down for the Bhagavatam class, and he was relishing the Bhagavatam class. Though Devananda Pandit was always speaking from the Mayavad point of view in terms of his interpretation of the Bhagavatam, Srivas Pandit, even with a little Harikatha here and there, because Bhagavatam is full of Harikatha, so even a little bit of Harikatha really melted his heart. And it so happened that that day, that afternoon, when he went to hear Harikatha, though it was from a Mayavadi, this Srivas Pandit, for the purity of heart that he had, and because he was such a great devotee, his heart melted, and he went into these waves of ecstatic love of God. He became completely agitated, and he lost control. And thinking about Krishna, he just fell down on the floor, and he was rolling on the ground in love of God. So he developed ecstatic symptoms. The little bit of Krishna Katha that he heard. And when he was doing this, the students who were there, and including Devananda Pandit, they all thought that Srivas Pandit was just a disturbance to them in their class. So the students who were so hardened in their hearts because of this understanding of the impersonalist philosophy, and because they didn't understand what is love of God and what is how to relish Krishna Katha, they just thought the Srivas Pandit is such a disturbance, and they picked him out, they just dragged him out, and they threw him out of the house. Okay, they threw him out of that place. And this Devananda Pandit, who was sitting there on the Vyasasan giving the class, he didn't stop his students. He was the guru of all of them, and he didn't stop them because he also had a similar mindset like his students. So he didn't stop it. And because when the disciples of a guru make a severe mistake and the guru doesn't correct them, or the guru doesn't chastise them on the spot, the guru takes the sins of such disciples, because he's also taking part in that sin. So this is what happened with Devananda Pandit. He did not chastise the misbehavior of the students, and he became more and more hard-hearted with Mayavad. And Srivas Pandit, who was humiliated like this, he didn't say anything. He was a very sweet devotee. He didn't say anything. He was thrown out. He just got up and he went back to his house. And all of this occurred at a much earlier stage before the advent of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But then later, once when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was expressing his Mahaprakash Leela for about 21 hours, at that time when he was speaking to Srivas Pandit, he told Srivas Prabhu, the Pandit, about what exactly Srivas Thakur, that I remember, do you remember this incident? I know that very well. Now, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, during the Mahaprakash Leela, he was exhibiting that he's the Supreme Lord himself. I mean, he was openly exhibiting that. And he spoke about different devotees and their true nature, and about various incidents in their life. So at that time, when he was speaking to Srivas Thakur, he told Srivas Thakur about this particular incident, how Devananda Pandit had actually thrown him out of the house. And Srivas Thakur was extremely surprised that the Lord knew all of this. Then later, after this incident, one day Mahaprabhu himself, he was walking in Nadyagram, and at that time he saw that this Devananda Pandit was giving a discourse in Maheshwara Vishadhar Pandit's house. So there was another personality by the name Maheshwara Pandit, and in his house, this Devananda Pandit was again giving his Srimad Bhagavatam discourse. And from outside, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was standing and listening to his Mayavad discourse on the Srimad Bhagavatam. And now Mahaprabhu, he wanted to really show his anger towards Devananda Pandit. So Chaitanya Bhagavat, Madhya Lila 21.13, this verse records the words of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I'll read that verse. It's very interesting. Very, very beautiful nectarian verse that comes out of the mouth of Sri Mahaprabhu. Actually, he's scolding Devananda Pandit, but it's so nectarian to hear. So he says, what purport will that rascal explain? Not in any of his births has he understood the meaning of even one verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam. The Bhagavatam is the avatar of Sri Krishna in book form. Devotion is the only subject it teaches. The four Vedas are like yogurt and the Bhagavatam is like butter. Srila Shukadev Goswami did the churning and Maharaj Parikshit ate that butter. Shukadev Goswami is very dear to me. He knows very well that the Srimad Bhagavatam is meant to describe the truth about me according to my own liking. Whoever sees any difference between me, my own devotees, and the Srimad Bhagavatam simply brings destruction upon himself. So, like this, standing outside, he didn't enter the house where the Bhagavat Katha of Devanand Pandit was going. But standing outside, he made a loud proclamation, so much so that Devananda Pandit could hear it. And the rest of the people there who were gathered listening to Devananda Pandit, everybody could hear it. He did this. And when Mahaprabhu made these statements loud enough for Devananda Pandit to hear, Devananda Pandit, he kind of went it because first and foremost thing, he was older in age to Mahaprabhu, and he thought he knew it much better than Mahaprabhu. So he didn't accept it very nicely. And he did not correct himself. He was a little offended by the Lord. And the Lord went away after this. After many, many days, Devananda Pandit, by great fortune, he came across a devotee by the name Vakreshwar Pandit. So Vakreshwar Pandit was a very advanced devotee who happened to visit Kulyagram, and he was engaged in a festival of Kirtan, and he was dancing and chanting. And when Devananda Pandit had darshan of this Vakreshwar Pandit, he was really blown away because he was seeing that this person is so effulgent, and while chanting and dancing the holy names of the Lord, he was so effulgent and he was so absorbed in the holy names. So for somehow this Devananda Pandit started developing a respect and liking towards Vakreshwar Pandit. In fact, in one of the kirtans, Vakreshwar Pandit even lost his consciousness and he fell down because he was so much in ecstasy in love of God. At that time, this Devananda Pandit, he held Vakreshwar Pandit and he kind of caressed his forehead and made sure that he could come back to consciousness, and he was personally controlling the crowd from falling or obstructing the dancing of this Vakreshwar Pandit. Because he served Vakreshwar Pandit, he could recognize that little goodness in a devotee. See, you see here, this Devananda Pandit had a way out. Though he also started off like Ramachandra Puri in one sense. Still, he had this little appreciation for a devotee. So he had this appreciation towards this particular devotee by the name Vakreshwar Pandit. He treated him nicely. He took out his own upper cloth and he cleaned the forehead of Vakreshwar Pandit. He controlled the crowd from disturbing Vakreshwar Pandit's dancing and chanting. So like this, he earned his credit of becoming a potential devotee in the future. Okay, so that was the beginning of his devotional service, this Devananda Pandit. And because of this little service that he did, Vakreshwar Pandit had the opportunity to go and spend some time with Devananda Pandit. And Vakreshwar Pandit had a nice discussion with Devananda Pandit. And Devananda Pandit also discussed about this, chastisement of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu earlier. And then at that time, Vakreshwar Pandit told Devananda Pandit that actually you're extremely fortunate. The Lord has personally chastised you. Try to understand the Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam should not be understood from an impersonalist point of view. It should be understood only from the point of view of bhakti. And Krishna should be really understood as a true personality, and all his incarnations are as real as himself. And Bhagavatam is truly a devotional book. So he enlightened him, and he also enlightened him on the true identity of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He told him that go and read the revealed scriptures. You'll identify that this is the incarnation in the age of Kali who has come to spread the holy names of the Lord. So all this was revealed, and also it is mentioned in that beautiful book called Gauranga of Jayapataka Swami. He describes this incident very beautifully, the conversation between Vakreshwar Pandit and Devananda Pandit. That Devananda Pandit also, he read up and he understood that the incarnation for this age of Kali is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had personally chastised him, and his eyes were opened. And after some days, when Mahaprabhu came to Bengal to visit his mother, at that time, Devananda Pandit had the darshan of the lotus feet of Mahaprabhu. And when Mahaprabhu was earlier in my Pandit, and a lot of people, kind of made offenses against him, thinking him to be an ordinary person. All these people, when Mahaprabhu came back after his sannyas, when he was visiting Bengal, all of them went and fell at the lotus feet of Mahaprabhu and begged for forgiveness. So at that time, Devananda Pandit also went, joined that crowd, and he fell down at the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and begged for forgiveness. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he saw Devananda Pandit coming forward and offering his obeisances, he picked up Devananda Pandit and told him that actually the qualification that you have earned is that you served my dear devotee Vakreshwar Pandit, and therefore I have been pleased with you. Only because you served him, you're able to approach me today. Only because you went and you served him, that earned the qualification for you to, for me to be pleased with you, and for you to have changed your heart and come and approach me today. So therefore, whoever serves a devotee becomes a candidate for Krishna's mercy. So then Devananda Pandit, he had a nice conversation with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he told, I've understood that you are indeed the Supreme Lord, you are the Supreme Controller, and you've advented yourself because of your causeless mercy in this age of Kali to deliver all of us. So please be merciful upon me. Actually, Srivas Pandit was a very, very advanced devotee, and he heard the sweet nectar of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and he fell in. He just erupted in ecstasy, and I couldn't understand that because my heart was so hardened. But now you please try to instruct me. Tell me the actual purport of the Srimad Bhagavatam. That day I couldn't understand the emotions of Srivas Pandit or Srivas Thakur. But today you please tell me what the Srimad Bhagavatam is all about. So then Mahaprabhu told him that the only way to explain the Bhagavatam is to understand it in terms of bhakti, because in the middle, in the end, in the front, everywhere, Srimad Bhagavatam speaks only about pure devotional service. So then he also talks about the various incarnations of the Lord, that they all appear and disappear by their own sweet will. Similarly, the Srimad Bhagavatam is also very divine. It just appears and disappears upon its own sweet will, and only because devotion was there in the mouth of Vyasadev, that is why Srimad Bhagavatam has been blossomed into such a beautiful bhakti shastra. So there is no a Maya, the Mayavad understanding of Bhagavatam is actually not at all the real Bhagavatam. In fact, Bhagavatam cannot truly be explained in the Mayavad way. So, if you really want to understand the meaning of Bhagavatam, you should understand it through the mouth of a devotee in the mode of devotional service. Then he told, if you really want to understand the Bhagavatam, you have made an offense. You have thrown Srivas Pandit out of the house. So the first thing you need to do is go and beg forgiveness from Srivas Pandit. Hold his feet, beg for forgiveness. Understand that Bhagavata and Bhagavatam is non-different. That is a personality Bhagavata and the book Bhagavatam is not different. So go and beg forgiveness from him. Then you will be able to understand the true meaning of Bhagavatam, and you can develop pure love for God. So like this, Devananda Pandit, following the instructions of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he goes, he catches the feet of Srivas Pandit, and he begs for forgiveness, and then finally he understands the meaning of Bhagavatam, and there is a complete transformation of character. Okay, there is also a temple in the area where Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu forgave Devananda Pandit, and that place is the place where this Radha Vinod Bihari deity and the Varaha deity called as Kola Varahadev is situated. And that is the temple area where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually forgave the offenses of Devananda Pandit. So you see the story of Devananda Pandit, it started off in a very similar way like Ramachandrapuri, but then it took a twist, it took a turn, and the ending was very beautiful. Why? Because he had a little appreciation for a devotee. So a little appreciation for a devotee goes a long way. So a little appreciation, a little correction of oneself, that definitely goes a long way, and that was exhibited in the case of Devananda Pandit's story. So coming back to the story of Ramachandra Puri, which kind of went a little in a different way, like this, everybody. So we saw the statements of Paramananda Puri. He went and he requested Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and still Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would not take his full meal, and he just started taking just half as usual. And the amount of food that was purchased for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu became very less. For 160 conchals, they could get food for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and that food itself, 2-3 people could take. Like Govinda would take, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would share. So this went on for a very long time. And sometimes a Brahmana would give invitation to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to come and accept prasadam. And this Brahmana would sometimes, just buy the prasadam, or sometimes he would cook it himself. And some days, even though some Brahmanas would invite Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for food for a little amount, but at the same time, if someone else like Gadadhar Pandit or Bhagavan Acharya or Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who are close associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, made an invitation, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would go to these close devotees just to please them, just to give them happiness. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, pretty much, he just behaved the way he wanted according to time, place, and circumstance, because he's the complete, supreme, independent Lord. So he behaved the way he wanted. Sometimes he showed his godly opulence, sometimes he behaved like a common man. So like that, sometimes he accepted Ramachandra Puri as a spiritual master and offered obeisances to him. He behaved like a servant in front of Ramachandra Puri, but sometimes he would neglect Ramachandra Puri. He would just neglect him like a straw on the street. So that was the kind of neglecting was the kind of punishment. We saw that in the previous session with Suksagri Mataji also. So he would just neglect this Ramachandra Puri. So he was the independent Supreme Lord. He just behaved the way he wanted. And it was not restricted. It was not that always Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was like, okay, Ramachandra Puri, whatever you say, I listen. He just behaved the way he wanted. Whatever he liked, he did. And these activities of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are described as being extremely beautiful. He was such a such an example for everybody. And from time to time, he also showed his supreme opulence. So, like this, Ramachandra Puri, he continued to stay in Nilachal Jagannath Puri for quite some time. And finally, it was time for him to leave because he wanted to visit other holy places of pilgrimage. And when he left, it was a big celebration for all the devotees in Nilachal, in Jagannath Puri. Everybody was so happy. Finally, Ramachandra Puri had left, and they felt like a big burden on their head was now released. A burden was put down. That is the feeling all the devotees had, and all the devotees were feeling extremely happy once he left. So this is another thing. I mean, like, hopefully, as practicing devotees, we should not become like this, where someone else is feeling so happy that we are leaving. So this is what happened to the to Ramachandra Puri's case, that devotees were feeling such a big sigh of relief that he left. And after he left, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he started accepting invitations as usual, and he started eating as usual. So everything normalized after the departure of Ramachandra Puri. And everyone could access prasadam without any hindrances or without someone watching you all the time. It's such a headache to have someone always watching you what you're doing and how you're doing it, whether you're doing it perfectly. So all this was released out of their heads, and everyone was happy, including Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was also he got back to normal, and everything became very nice after such a person actually left that place. So basically, in this chapter, we see that if one spiritual master rejects a person, one becomes very, very fallen. It becomes a big cycle, where you're fallen and you keep doing the mistakes over and over, and you don't know how to get out of that cocoon. So this is what happened with Ramchandra Puri. He kept doing offenses, and he kept on offending the Supreme Lord. And but however, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he didn't take any of this seriously, like we discussed. If it's to do with his devotee, he would take it very seriously, but to do with him, he just took it very lightly. And this character of this Ramachandra Puri just instructed everyone about the result of offending a spiritual master, how you become so disliked by everyone. You keep doing the offense again and again, and people, you can't appreciate others, and others also, they feel relieved if you just move away from the place. This is what happened with Ramachandra Puri. And the character, this is how Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami ends this chapter. I'll just read the last few verses so that we can also end the chapter. Uh, let's scroll down to the last few verses. Okay, here we go. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not consider the offenses of Ramachandra Puri, for the Lord considered him as a spiritual master. However, his character instructed everyone about the result of offending a spiritual master. The character of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is full of nectar. Hearing about it is pleasing to the ear and the mind. I write about the character of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. O readers, please hear it with attention, for thus you will easily receive ecstatic love for the lotus feet of Sri Krishna. Praying at the lotus feet of Sri Rupa and Sri Raghunath, always desiring their mercy, I, Krishnadas, narrate Sri Chaitanya Caritamrita, following in their footsteps. The standard verse that Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami always mentions towards the end of every chapter. So, like this chapter ends, and this ends the Bhaktivedanta purports to Sri Chaitanya Caritamrita Antya Lila, 8th chapter, describing how the Lord reduced his eating in fear of the criticism of Ramachandra Puri. So we end this chapter here. Any questions, comments, or realizations, please go ahead. And we have seen enough about fault finding and criticism. All the stories have been covered by all the speakers. So I think this chapter is a very good lesson for all of us. And hopefully, in future, including myself, everyone can have some corrections.
Hare Krishna. Such a beautiful class. Thank you
Mataji.
so
I was
much.
reading most of the time.
Seriously, you quoted so wonderfully. And yes, you said that we have heard in this chapter enough of criticism, but yes, now is the time to really implement in our life so that we should not criticize. And I really like the point when you were saying that everybody felt happy when Ramachandra Puri left. So we should not be the same. To whichever yatra we are serving, people should really feel sad when we are leaving that
We
yatra.
are leaving. Yeah, they should not feel, oh my God, thank God this person left. Now I can be
Oh,
myself.
yeah. So this should not be the case. And another point, even my Guru Maharaj used to say that Vaishnavas should not be seen eating and sleeping because
Hmm.
you tend to commit offense. That how the person is eating and how much he's sleeping and so on and so forth. So thank you for such a beautiful class, for quoting that pastime of Devananda Pandit and sharing the verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. And in that verse, I just
Yeah.
want to ask for clarification. That is it the right
Mm.
understanding when we say that we should not praise the devotees means that we should not flatter the devotees because genuine praise is allowed, right?
Yes,
like
yes, yes,
like now I'm
definitely.
praising your class, so definitely this is
Yeah,
a genuine praise, so it is okay, right? It's
yeah, it's
only the
okay. And even
flattering.
in that, yeah, 100% it is perfectly fine. And genuine praise is always allowed, especially in context with Krishna, meaning in context with devotional service, praise is
Hmm.
encouraged actually. And even in the Nyaya Shastra, that Purva Vidhi and Paravidhi that we
Yeah.
saw,
Yeah.
that becomes less important, meaning it should not, it can be, it's not even so important, to
Hmm.
avoid praise. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
in
one should
that.
very carefully follow avoiding criticism. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and also there was a very nice class. I forgot which Maharaj. I didn't pull it up, but about so many places where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself has praised the devotees. So a collection of
Oh
different
yes.
verses.
Oh yes.
Yeah,
Especially when people from Kulinagram used to come, Mahaprabhu used to bid farewell to them by praising each and every one of
praising.
them. Right?
Yeah.
So
It's a very
that's a
good quality.
quality.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah.
quality. But yes, when it comes to a flattering point where we are simply praising because of some material desires, then that is wrong.
Yeah,
And one
perfect.
thing I would like to add, your example of Nyaya Shastra,
Mm,
that how when the two statements are made, the former becomes of little value and the later supersedes the formal statement. In this regard, I was
mhm,
just recently hearing the class of Haripashad Prabhu where he was giving this example. Just a mundane example, but that made me so clear. So I just want to
mm,
share that
mm,
if you are going on a road and it's a straight
mm,
road, right, there is no signal as such,
mm,
then the statement is
mm,
that you can freely drive on that road, right? But the later
mm,
statement is
mm.
that if you see any zebra crossing, then you need to stop.
So
So when
yeah.
there is a zebra crossing, you have to stop. If this statement is made, then the former statement that yes, we can freely go on that road doesn't hold any value because if there is a zebra crossing, we have to stop no matter what. So that really stuck me, and I was
Oh,
thinking, wow.
thank you for sharing that. I have so much to catch up with, Kavanam. I
Mm,
have so much to catch up. But thank you for sharing that exactly at this time.
yeah,
Thank
because
you.
you were sharing about that Nyaya Shastra. So, thank you, Preethi Vilasini Mataji. Totally indebted to you. So grateful to you that you came and you gave this class. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna, Preeti
Hi,
Vidasini. I
Krishna
really
Preeti.
appreciate
Haribol.
Such a beautiful class, Preeti, and I'm so grateful to you. You covered that pastime. I was feeling very bad when Sita Preeti asked me to do that pastime, and I think you did such a wonderful. You are such a good narrator, and you did such a wonderful job with the Devanand Pandit pastime. So yeah, I'm so thankful to you. I was feeling very bad when, I couldn't do it the other day, but I think you gave it all the time and all the nice details and everything so beautifully. You did
Actually,
it
I
so
should thank
nicely.
Vinita Mataji. I was constantly asking her, hey, what are the pastimes you're doing in your Damodar class?
Oh, okay.
And then she gave me everything. And then I was going back and forth with her, Devanand Pandit, you think it'll fit in? So Yeah.
Yeah, so nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just one more detail I wanted to add to what Kirtida Mataji's question was like I think the praise and the the contempt or the fault finding, I think it's discussed with respect to material designation, right? That's what is being said, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
so we
that's
cannot
what
praise
it is.
based on material designations, or like maybe physical appearance or things. I mean, those are bad, but of course praising a sweet devotee like you is always great.
Yeah, yeah, that's what that verse is talking about. You're right, Mataji. Yes. Yes.
Thanks so much, Preeti. So such a pleasure to hear you always. Thank you. Hare
But
Thank
Krishna.
what's
you.
the harm to say someone if someone is really beautiful?
Yeah, there's no harm. I mean, as long as the intention is, I mean, I think it comes down to intentions, right? Why you're praising that person. Yeah, if you're really telling for this, if they're really beautiful, that is very nice. Yes.
Yeah, there is no harm, right? I don't know. Sorry, Suksagari Mataji.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, technically, if you're offering a heartfelt praise, I don't see a problem.
Yeah.
But it's only, I think, to help us understand that we should not be on the material platform and not praise based on material qualification. Oh, he is a PhD, or he's, a big, he's the president of United States. I mean, we should not be giving somebody consideration based on those qualifications perhaps, and we should consider devotional service as the first. I mean, that's what is the impression I'm getting from that statement. So that I just wanted to share, Mataji.
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, Mata. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, very, very wonderful class. I don't
Very.
know if can you hear? I don't know.
Yes, 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 yes.
So when we say if somebody is very beautiful, and then we can say that, but we can also say it like that, yes, Krishna has given you the tinge of his beauty, just a little bit of his beauty to you, like that. You know.
Yeah, connect to Krishna. Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Mataji. Thank you, Kamal.
Thank you very much.
Hare
Very
Krishna.
beautiful class. Very nicely explained everything. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji.
I was wondering about that, about praising the devotees, when they're giving a nice class and some something they do nice, and we say, yeah, you did very nicely, very good. So then, I said, yeah, we should do that. It's a devotional service.
Yes, yes, and it's a genuine feeling that you're sharing. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna Mataji, all glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Mataji.
Hari bol, Hari bol. I had a
Has-
question. Can you hear me? I
Yeah.
was on the. Okay, I had a question. So, the Jagannatha Pandit did not really get a no, well, two questions. Devananda Pandit, who actually his students, threw out Srivas Pandit out of the out of the assembly. Now he am I to understand that because he later on um, you know was very respectful to Rakveshwar Pandit, a devotee, that he did not get a negative reaction to, I mean, this was, throwing Pandit Srivas out of the assembly was quite a extreme offense to a devotee. So is it that because he, ultimately got the mercy of Rakeshwar Pandit, that he did not have a negative result?
After
That's
that,
one thing.
after he developed that, then only things sorted out for him. Till then, he was drowning in the same Mayavad ideas, and he was not very favored by the Lord. In fact, the
Okay.
Lord, yeah,
So that being that attitude of being forgotten, quote unquote, by the Lord is the suffering, basically, right? Is the
yeah, yeah.
and as Jagannath Pandit, he was just forgotten by the Lord. Is that how we're to understand too? That was his suffering. That he
Devanand,
um no Jagannath Jagat who we were talking about just now.
Devananda Pandit.
No, I'm sorry.
Sorry. Ramachandra.
Yeah, sorry, sorry.
Ramachandra.
Ramachandra, I'm so sorry. God. Ramachandra Puri. So his, no, so I guess explain to me exactly what his, no, he left so that he did not get the association of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Was that his
Yeah, he
stuff?
was
Was
just
that,
neglected by the Lord. That's all. He didn't even get a chastisement because he was a superior. He didn't even get chastised, and he was just neglected by the Lord. He didn't even earn his credit of appreciating a devotee and getting back the Lord's attention.
okay. That's, I guess that was why I couldn't was understand. Okay, thank you very much. Again, wonderful class, beautiful. I especially liked the part that you were explaining about when you did the verse from the Bhagavad Gita, saying that just naturally by following these principles, we become, because we only eat prasadam, you naturally become pure. Just kind of like an automatic, it just happens automatically. You don't even have to try it yourself. You don't have to, you you don't even have to really strive too much yourself. It tries to put everything in place for us so that we can succeed. That's what I mean to say. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you. Thank you much.
Hi, Krishna Mataji.
Haribol Mataji. Just 1 second. Yes, Mataji. Sita Preethi Mataji.
Yeah, beautiful class, Mataji, and the way you have narrated it, the story is like wonderful, wonderful. So now, Mataji, like what I like, this was when the class started. This was the very first thing which popped up in my mind was that when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was being chastised, like why was the reason that he accepted that chastisement? Like if it is like when you are accepting some chastisement, that means you are accepting that okay, this is wrong, right?
The idea is that he was just following see, the situation was such that Ramachandra Puri was his worshipable superior. Okay, he couldn't, at that point in time, he felt that whatever advice he was giving was in such a way that he could show to the world and show by example to the world. So basically, following Sannyas Dharma, he was giving advice on following Sannyas Dharma to the Lord, right? So he was thinking that, it's okay. This advice is good in one sense that, okay, I can reduce eating and I can show to the world by example. So that was the intention with which he accepted it. Secondly, he didn't want to be very vocal in uh, at that time to Ramachandra Puri and disrespect him being a superior. So this is how it is being shown that when the chastisement and correction was to himself, the Lord didn't really take it seriously. He thought, okay, this will benefit me to show to the world by example. But if the chastisement was towards his devotee and the devotee was really affected by it, the Lord wouldn't keep quiet. Okay, did that help, Mataji? This is the sentiment of
Okay.
it. Even for us also, right? If our dear ones are being told something like your parents or your children or your siblings are being accused unnecessarily, that really hits us like thunderbolts. But if we are told something, I mean, it's secondary. It's like, okay, I
Mhm.
can deal with it, right? Especially, I've seen mothers get very upset when the children are being chastised unnecessarily in front of their eyes. So that hits them really hard. If they are being told, and a humble person would think, okay, maybe this is for my development, I will just live by example. I will accept the corrections and I can show by example that, yes, I can, deal with it. So it's a subtle psychology, Mataji, and especially the Lord is like that. Towards him, he doesn't care much, but the devotees get very worried. Like how Paramananda Puri was so worried about Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and
Mhm.
all the devotees reduce their eating. It's a very beautiful, loving relationship between the Lord and his devotees. Okay.
Sure, sure, Mataji. Yeah, getting to know it. Sure, Mataji. Thank you so much, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Sita Priti Mataji.
So Mataji, wasn't this again this the same reason why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went for the sannyasa also? Like again because of some saying of these reasons, or like
Yeah,
because right
yeah,
taking
very
sannyasa
nicely
also.
connected. Yes, very nicely connected. So he wanted to show that, a sannyasi is taken more seriously, and people were not taking him seriously before. So that's a very nice connection that you made. Yeah, that was one of the reasons why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu even took sannyas to show the world.
Mhm.
Very nice.
Right. So then for like because it is the Lord and he is following, like he wants it to be followed by example.
Mm,
So then because it is the Lord, it makes more sense. So
mm.
how should we apply it for ourselves, Mataji? Because then people will be every now and then criticizing you for something or the other. So who is that we should be taking the criticism seriously and changing ourselves? Because for you cannot be a bottle of peanut butter to please everyone, right? So
Yeah,
then whom should we take seriously, and how do we understand that okay, who is telling us for our benefit or who is just telling out of their own anarthas that they are speaking up? How to differentiate in that?
yeah, that's a good point. That's a good question also. So it varies from case to case. We can see if this, because of changing this, is it benefiting myself? Okay, they are telling you, okay, you have to change this, you have to do this, you have to correct yourself like this. If someone is telling us like that, we can assess for ourselves. Is it helping me to improve in any way? If it's not helping, just ignore and carry on. If it's helping us to improve in some way for our own benefit, meaning for our own good and nice well-being, then we can take it. But at the same time, it's not that we have to, be a, like you said, be a bottle of peanut butter to everybody. We can set our limits, how much we would like to be, how much, whether it depends on the equation with that person, whether that person is in the position to correct us and chastise us. That is the first thing. If they are in a position to correct us and chastise us, like maybe our superiors or someone, and or even maybe our close relative, or someone whom we consider dear to, I mean, we consider them to be very dear to us, then we can take it a little more seriously and see if maybe that is what is lacking in me. I can implement it and become a better person. But it is really not required for you to be a bottle of peanut butter to each and everyone you come across. We have to also be practical. Yeah. But how do we understand whether we are doing it out of their ego? Like, for example, you are already doing certain things and they're just nitpicking on you, then you can just ignore it and move on. You don't have to make any corrections. So you have to first understand the psychology of that person, why that person is doing it. If that person is doing it genuinely, accept it. If you feel that this person is just fond of fault finding, just wants to put you down, then just ignore, but offer respects and keep moving on. We don't have to break a relationship, or we do not have to break our bonds with them. We can just keep that respectful distance and move on. Did that help, Mataji?
Yes, Mataji. Yes, Mataji. Perfect. Perfect. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavad Pranam, Srila Prabhupada, Srila Gurudev ki jai, Jai Jai Nityananda, Jai Jai Gauranga. Koti Koti Dandavad Pranam, Mataji. It's very, very inspiring and useful in our day-to-day life. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Vrinda Gopika Mataji. Thank you so much for your presence and association.
Hare Krishna, Preethi Vilasini Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. Hare Krishna, Preethi Vilasini Mataji, your class is very nice.
Thank you, my dear expert opinion giver. Thank you.
Mataji, very, very beautiful class, Mataji. Thank you so much for such a beautiful class. Very nice points, Mataji. So many things to learn from the class, and the stories are awesome as
Thank
every
you for the
time.
story.
Nothing I did, Mataji. I just told the title name, and you took out from Chaitanya Caritamrita Gauranga book everything you mixed and you connected to the other story which is in sequence. And oh my God, you did so much, Mataji. I just told title name. That's it. Hare Krishna, Mataji. Very, very
Very
beautiful.
helpful, Mataji. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mataji, for beautiful class.
Hare Krishna, Preethi Vilasini Mataji. Please accept my Dandavad Pranam, all Guru Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much, Mataji, for again this Nectarian class. We are learning so much and improving our character day by day. Thank you so much, Mataji. And if there are no more,
Not me. I have a long way to go, Mataji.
because of instructions, Mataji, we are getting chance to improve ourselves. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mataji. Yeah.
So, Hare Krishna devotees. So, if there are no more questions for Mataji, so with Mataji's permission and with all the assembled devotees, we
Hare
can end the
Krishna
call.
Mataji. So sorry. I'm so sorry, Mataji. Hare Krishna, Preethi Mataji.
No, Mataji, please give it.
Thank you so much. Preethi Mataji, Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranams, all glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. So Mataji, thank you so much for the beautiful class, and I definitely relished your the entire episode and then the completion of the story as well. Lot of takeaways, lot of points to, as you said, to meditate upon and imbibe. So to this connection, I was also thinking about Damodar Pandit, how he, he did have a he also had a recommendation to the Lord, and the Lord. We also saw that, I think, in the Antya Lila 3, right? Where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was showing affection to the Brahmin boy, and then Damodar Pandit was concerned that he was showing affection to the Brahmin boy, and because others would think about him in some other way, he went to the Lord and expressed his mood of expressed his thoughts, and then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructed him to go and be with Sachi Mata at Nadia. So this, I was just trying to contemplate and meditate upon these two, because to your point on how Lord takes everybody's instruction, so I was just trying to see how this actually reflected to Damodar Pandit's case. And so here, he was pleased, of course, with what Damodar Pandit had to say, and but again, he wanted Damodar Pandit to go to Nadia and give Sachimata the happiness and remind her of the confidential incidents. In saying that he comes every day to eat at Sachimata's place. So what do you think, Mataji?
Such a beautiful comparison. I was also thinking, like, as you were mentioning Damodar Pandit was doing it so that, out of good intentions, not like Ramachandra Puri. Ramachandra Puri was dry criticism, just fault finding. But Damodar Pandit was doing it so that others wouldn't think bad of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and he could show the example better. So I was just thinking of the contrast between the two kinds of corrections, one from Ramachandra Puri and the other from Damodar Pandit. Damodar Pandit was very constructive for the well-being of Sri Chaitanya, genuine concern, while Ramachandra Puri's didn't really reflect that much genuine concern. So that is some analysis that, as you were talking, I was thinking about, right?
Yes. And
very beautiful, very, very beautiful. Thanks for bringing that out. Yeah.
Oh, sure,
Fantastic
Mataji.
comparison.
Sure, Mataji. So, and the verse that you quoted from Bhagavatam also makes a lot of sense. And I also was going to stress on what Sukasagari Mataji said. Because in this world of Kali Yuga, people have different mentalities. And therefore, again, it's just, I think it's coming from the material world's perspective. People always have good or bad, and that is of no meaning to us when from a material perspective, because we don't aspire to go to higher planetary systems for whatever material good we do, or we don't aspire to go for the lower planetary systems because of our bad deeds. So those material prices and disqualifications doesn't make a difference to a devotee.
Very true, Mataji. Very, very true. Thank you for adding that too. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, Mataji. I'm so sorry. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Thank you for your wonderful class. Just for 1 minute, can you please elaborate on the Damodar Pandit thing? I did not understand everything because I am new to Caitanya Caritamrita. Just for if it is possible. If it is too long, then it's okay, Mataji.
No, it's not too long. Radhika Mataji, would you like to just share a story?
Sure, Mataji, sure. So, with regards to Damodar Pandit, what happened was in Puri, there was this boy who was very young, beautiful, and gentle. He actually lost his father. He used to come daily and he used to offer respects to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who was his life and soul. And Lord Chaitanya, he treated him very affectionately. And this was intolerable for Damodar Pandit. He repeatedly forbade this boy, but he, the boy, could not bear not seeing the Lord and ignored his restrictions. So now, because of this, Damodar Pandit was actually very concerned that, what would others think if Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is showing affection to this boy, because the mother is a widow, and as a sannyasi he was supposed to maintain his rules and regulations, and this was very concerning for Damodar Pandit, as Mataji said, with a very good intention. He wanted to express this concern to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he went again and expressed his feelings to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he actually was very pleased. He smiled and thought, this impudence is also a sign of pure love for me. I have no other intimate friend like you, Damodar Pandit. And then next day, he called Damodar Pandit to a solitary place and he spoke some things. He just said that you better go to Nadia and you stay with my mother. You give her happiness by telling her of my happiness and my personal activities here. Thus, she may share in my happiness and her mind becomes satisfied. You also remind her of my confidential incidents of my eating, and you tell her that I come to the house of Sachimata every day to eat her prasad. And this way, he actually instructed Damodar Pandit. So this actually brings the mood of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to show that Damodar Pandit was actually concerned about him, and in turn he also reciprocated how he would actually do that with a devotee of his, and he felt that this was a good opportunity for Damodar Pandit to actually serve his mother and gain her association. In that process, not only that, he would gain association of the devotees in the Nadia area. And finally, also, when he satisfied Sachimata, obviously the Lord is going to be pleased. That way, he wanted to do this act for everybody's benefit. Hope that helped, Mataji.
Thank you so much, Mataji. Thank you
Thank
very,
you.
very much. Thank you very much, Preethi Vilasini Mataji. Wonderful class. Danvat Pranam.
Thank
Hare
you, Harima Mataji. Thank you, Radhika Mataji, for telling the story so nicely. Thank you.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you for the question.
Thank you so much, Preethi Vilasini Mataji, for the very beautiful class.
Indu, you have to be a little loud.
Mataji, I think I need to get my stuff.
Yeah, good. This is good. This is good.
Okay, this is good. Okay. Thank you so much, Mataji. A very instructive class, and I really love the way the purports to the Bhagavatam chapters also, chapter 28 of Canto 11. Uh, we'll have to read and try to imbibe that mood, Mataji. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Indu.
Radhika
Thank you.
Mataji for the wonderful pastime, Damodar. Yeah, on Damodar Prabhu.
Thanks to your Damodar team. Yeah, Damodar. Yeah, Damodar Pandit and Damodar team. Mm.
Yes, Mataji. Yes, Gauranga book is really wonderful.
Okay, Mataji, Preethi Mataji. Shall we end the class, Mataji? Okay,
Sure.
Mataji. Thank you so much once again for your valuable time and association, Mataji. And each and every time you are giving us new ways to improve ourselves and how we can come closer to Gauranga Mahaprabhu also, Mataji. Thanks a lot. And with this note, I would like to pay my obeisances. Vancha kalpatarubhyasya kripa sindhu dvaye vacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. अनंत
अनंत
कोटि
कोटि
वैष्णव वृंद की
वैष्णववृंद की
जय।
जय, श्रील
नामाचार्य
प्रभु
श्रील हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। श्रील
गोपाल
प्रभुपाद की
कुमार
जय।
की
चैतन्य
जय।
चरितामृता की जय। हर ग्रेस प्रीति विलासिनी माता जी की जय।
अनंत
Jai.
कोटि
Thank
वैष्णववृंद की
thank
जय.
you
All
so much,
glories to
Mataji.
all the
Hare Krishna.
devotees on the call. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri
Hare
Prabhupada.
Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mataji,
Hare
for a
Krishna Mataji.
Thank you, Vrinda. Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Hare Krishna Mataji. Thank you so much. Hari
Thank
Bol.
you.
Or